Welcome, everyone, to the second episode of the Rose Tackle Football Show. I'm your host, Michael, here with my co-host, John. What's up, John? How you doing?
Great. Happy to be here. We had
All right.
quite the weekend of football, so excited to get into it.
Yeah, some big stuff, and we appreciate just before we get started here, all the feedback we got on the last episode. Just happy to know that there was somebody watching and listening, so that was great. But we'll continue to do this even if nobody's watching or listening. All right, so let's jump into this. So again, we're going to go week in review, and we've got a few things in there to talk about. We'll hit a couple news and notes, and then go ahead and preview a couple of the upcoming matchups for this week. News and notes section is jam-packed with some big stuff going on, and we'll try to hit all of it.
Huge.
Yes, it's huge. We'll start though with the weekend review. Couple devastating losses. One for you, John Rose, and the other for Kelly. 0-3. Not. I don't think. I mean, do you think it's a season killer? I think the injuries might be a season killer for you, but I don't think it's a season killer necessarily.
No, for me, I'm having a rough time with the injuries. Getting Kittle back though this week, and no one's really taking a stab at him on the trade block. Which getting him back will be a big boost, and hopefully, avoiding the Chris Godwin injury and having Mixon in my pocket now is hopefully will get me back on track here. But I put up a paltry amount of points last week, so that was rather embarrassing. And I did not heed Bill's advice from last week of trying to score more than 100 points. And
you did not get there. So we can jump into this matchup real quick because John, you it's an embarrassing output, and I think one of the issues, obviously, all the injuries pretty bad, not great. You have not gotten the production from some of the more top line guys that you were expecting to get production from, namely Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon has been a fucking huge disappointment so far this year.
Indeed. He started really slow last year. I also had him last year. I seem to have him every year in at least one league, and I've never won, so I don't. Mixon is
maybe you should stop drafting him. Yeah,
not the answer here. But then, if you look at other guys, obviously AJ Green's starting slow. Josh Kelly was hyped all week by everyone. Everyone said you could play Josh Kelly and Eckler. Terrible.
You made the wrong call there. You made the wrong call with that one. I mean, you should have started Mike Davis, but
I paid out the wazoo for him, and it did not go well. I think the only thing that I was taking a shot starting Russell Gage with Julio Jones out, and that did nothing. But I was going to play Brandon Cooks instead, and he did just as poorly. So, he was supposed to, he has not had a good game yet. So definitely just not getting any sort of output, and all the injuries.
You didn't have many options. And I think even if you had started in an optimal lineup in this week, I'm not sure you would have prevailed. It doesn't.
No, I'm pretty sure even if Steve had let me play my entire lineup, my entire roster, I don't think I would have beat Steve here. So
yeah, I agree.
So going back to your original question, yes, I think 0-3 is kind of a death sentence for me, but
that may be true. It may be a death sentence for you, but not necessarily. I think for Kelly's team. I think if we go to Kelly's team, let's pull this up here. So absolute fiasco, indeed.
Great name change. Great name change.
Well named. Kelly's got some big top line talent. Lamar Jackson and Dalvin Cook. two huge guys that are going to put up points every week as long as they stay healthy. But, where she's kind of fallen off is surprisingly, I think, a lack of depth. So, she doesn't really have a wide receiver one, and that's turned out to be, I think, the thing that's hurt her the most. Adam Thielen started out pretty hot, but hasn't been able to keep it up. And Odell, who knows what you're going to get week to week with Odell in that offense.
Yeah, that's Adam Thielen. You think that eventually Minnesota's going to figure it out and start to put up some points, but that hasn't happened yet. And Odell, certainly a boomer bust kind of guy. With Cleveland having such a potent running attack that they're not going to be force feeding Odell. So unless they trade him, like if they trade him, which there's always rumors of OBJ looking for a trade or possibly getting traded. Otherwise, no. But if you do look, so in this matchup here, Lamar had what I thought or heard was his worst game ever as a starter, which gave him, still gave Kelly 14 points, but had 90 yards passing or something like that, and almost as many rushing yards as you can see there. And then Mark Ingram was awful. So,
I mean, she, Kelly's got 3 Ravens on her team, and none of them kind of did much at all, right? Ingram didn't do much, and Jackson didn't do much. So,
with Le'Veon Bell on her bench, if Le'Veon Bell comes back from his injury, and with the rumors flying around that hopefully Adam Gase gets fired after the Jets loss tomorrow night. Whoever they bring in will, because then the rumor is that they'll feel. Oh yeah, you big Adam Gase truther. That Le'Veon gets becomes an actual workhorse running back again, which
for sure, which she could use. I think, Kelly
at least as trade, whether that's to make a trade, moving Mark Ingram or someone else to get a true wide receiver one. So I don't think I don't think 0-3 is a death sentence for her. I think there are going to be weeks where Adam Thielen and OBJ go off, and there's Lamar Jackson's not going to play the way he did, against Kansas City week in and week out. So
certainly not. All right, let's move on to the other side of that game, and kind of the other side of the league right now. This continues to be a Peter league. The first 3 weeks have been dominated by the Peters, both in the GroupMe chat and the trash talk that's been going back and forth, and really the total point score, the wins. So the Alpha Peters this week put up 136 points. The average Peters put up 142. Again, the 2 top scoring team, two of the top scoring, they were the 2 top scoring this week. I think Sullivan was number 3 last week. But right there at the top of the league in terms of points for the Alpha Peters 1, the average Peters 2. They're 2 impressive teams. I mean, do you think you see this slowing down anytime soon?
Not at the moment. I mean, that's a surprising lineup there to have 140 points come out of that with Randall Cobb and Adrian Peterson. He wouldn't expect it, but he didn't have Julio Jones there last week and put up 140, which Julio Jones comes back. Holy crap! I don't see that slowing down at all.
Nope.
and averaging close to 125 points a game at this point. It's going to get you a lot of wins, and both Peter, Alpha Peter and Average Peter, are sitting at 2 and 3 respectively in the standings, which is huge.
Yep.
And the Alpha Peter team, that's looking pretty alpha, and I don't see him slowing down with averaging over 140 points a game, even if he has some regression there. I mean, if that drops to 120, that's still pretty good. It's going to get you a lot of wins. So,
yeah, for sure. I think, I am really kicking myself on the Darrell Henderson drop. I'm also, I'm pretty jealous of the CeeDee Lamb pick. I think Peter, Kramer's really set himself up here for some good weeks. I mean, Tyler Lockett, that connection, Russell Wilson is having an MVP type season. He could throw for 50 touchdowns this year, maybe more.
Yeah, with Chris Carson out, potentially out for a week or more.
Yeah,
they're just going to keep going to Russell,
yep.
As they say, let him cook.
Indeed. All right. Well, let's keep it moving.
One other thing to note there in the Lovie Smith division, all three of them are playoff bound at the moment. With that division really dominating the entire league, and so I think that's.
Well, let's take a look at the Alex team real quick, right? Alec. Alec could be affected by the COVID situation, which we'll get to in a minute this week. Made a big trade last week with you, and you really fucked him. The marquee player involved in that trade for him, Chris Godwin, appears to be out. I mean, he's definitely out this week. He may be out for multiple weeks.
Yep, and it looks like he's already dropped one of the other guys from the trade, Malcolm Brown, and then picked up Anthony Miller. And Kerryon Johnson has continued to underperform, that's for sure. But he's still sitting with a pretty potent team, even if you move Chris Godwin down. And, well, Anthony Miller's certainly a boomer bust guy, but I would play him over any of those other guys on the bench at the moment.
I mean, Alec, clearly, I think the big weakness here for him is that backup running back. And I think we may have mentioned this last week. So, he's got to find a solution to that. But, all right, let's, you got anything else for the week?
The only other big matchup was the Bill and Josh matchup, which was a divisional matchup there. And resulted in Bill taking it down and becoming the only 3-0 team left, the only undefeated team left.
Yeah,
sole possession of first place.
Reminding me of this matchup, I scratched out something in my rundown here and wrote Bill and Josh next to it, but didn't look at what I had written. These are just little things we're going to get better at as we keep doing this.
That's why I'm here.
Thank you. Keep me on track.
Let's
take a look at this real quick. So Bill and Josh last week actually had a fairly exciting game going into Monday night. It was a toss-up, I think, going into Monday night. Bill had, and for, just so everybody knows, Bill, this is the Hollow Earthers. Josh, this is Wings and Pizza. The Hollow Earthers had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, as Steve Levy likes to say, on Monday Night Football. And Josh had Wings and Pizza had Mark Andrews and Tyreek Hill going. And, the fact of the matter is Mark Andrews just didn't show up like anybody else. I think he had a couple drops that night. He did not look good. I mean, that whole Baltimore offense had trouble at points. And Tyreek Hill played pretty well. He wasn't enough to overcome what was a good game from Clyde Edwards-Helaire and the rest of the team on the Hollow Earthers.
Yeah, yes. Mark Andrews, he had a great week one, but has really shit the bed the last 2 weeks, putting
Yeah.
up 3 fantasy points or so in both weeks. But one could say Lamar Jackson had a terrible game too. So it's really hard for Mark Andrews to find the blame in that, besides the drop, I guess. But
For sure.
if this had gone the other way, we would have been looking at certainly a different playoff landscape at the moment. And but with the loss, Josh drops to 1-2, which right now I think, as we were going through the standings earlier, there's 2 other teams at 1-2, and then 6 teams at 2-1. So win next week for Josh would go a long way, and I think he'd be right back in this thing. And otherwise had a great game, and he's put together a great team so far. Allen Robinson has finally shown up, had a big game. You could say Carson Wentz, even though he only had 1 touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown too, though, finally showed up too. So that's big. And Carson Wentz getting Alshon Jeffrey back this week, I believe. So I think Josh is going to get right back on track, and wings and pizza, or WAP, if I think that's the acronym that he's going for there, is going to make a solid run here.
All right. So just to, Mark Andrews also had a fumble in that game. That was it.
Oh, he did? I didn't know.
Yeah, that's not great. Okay. So let's move on to the news and notes section here. You cool with that?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So big news this week out of the NFL, as you've all heard. The Titans-Steelers game has been postponed. It may or may not be played on Monday or Tuesday of next week. Hopefully, it is played on Monday or Tuesday of next week. This impacts, at the very least, 7 people's rosters. I think, we are not sure what the situation is in Minnesota right now. I know that they haven't had any positive tests, but if the COVID if the infection originated in Tennessee, you would imagine that the Vikings were infected on Sunday, which means it could be, today, tomorrow, Friday, maybe even Saturday, before we find out about a positive test in Minnesota. So who knows what that holds, and if that game is canceled or postponed, that affects all but 1 team in the league. I think that team is Bill's team.
Great, the 3-0 team isn't going to be affected. That's cool. Yes,
exactly.
Tight.
Just a couple, so we can bring. I'll bring this up, but I mean, what are your thoughts on that, John? Are you?
Well, let's see.
Where you're...
Certainly, no, I'm not nervous because, injuries have plagued me all season long. So if I have to sit Ben, then I got to sit Ben. But as far as the league goes, that's just another Tuesday for me. But
yes.
As far as the league goes, it sounds like the NFL is trying to determine whether they're going to have it played Monday or Tuesday, which I think then it would count in the week 4 matchups, or potentially shift around some bye weeks to accommodate this, which I know bye weeks aren't starting till week 5 typically, but if they shift it, it is kind of weird this year. There's some bye weeks in week 13, which I know the Panthers are a week 13 bye, which seems really odd to have bye weeks so late in the season. And so if they were to move it up from week 4, starting in week 4, and maybe getting rid of the week 13 buys, which I think would benefit everyone, then I think that would be beneficial, and we would just treat it as a normal week where maybe you didn't quite plan for your bye weeks to be hitting you already, but if you've planned well, then you've got some people,
Yep.
as they say, the next man up situation. However, if it's much more extensive with if Minnesota's game ends up being affected, we're really going to have to take a look here. And as you've got the rules up here.
Yeah, just to remind people, right? So we did create these COVID IR spots. This is short-sighted by us, but also by, I think, Yahoo and by ESPN. And most fantasy platforms. I haven't come across anything online about a fantasy platform that is allowing people to move healthy players whose games have been affected by COVID into an IR spot that may have been created specifically for COVID. And you can't do that in Yahoo either. So, we're not going to make any decision right now. John and I are exploring a couple of options, including expanded bench spots and protected drops. But we're not going to make any decisions at the moment. I think we may just wait and see if some more news comes out Thursday or Friday. And we will have a decision for you by Saturday.
Yep.
The other thing I want to just remind people, a couple rules to remind people of. One is the injured reserve. There are 2 official injured reserve spots, 2 non-COVID injured reserve spots. So if you have more than 2 eligible IR players, you can only put 2 of them in your IR. The other one you need to stash on your bench or do whatever you want with them. I know that makes things tricky because the NFL created this short-term IR essentially this year, a 3-week IR, but that's where we're at. So, the person that this affects, I won't name them, but they know who I'm talking about.
You gotta check those IR spots and take one out.
Yes. The other thing, just to drop in here real quick, because we're going to move on to some of the transactions that happened this week, but the waiver wire, there's a minimum bid of $1. So a few of you were reassessed or had $1 taken away from your free agent auction budget this week as I went back in and looked over to make sure that people had done that. Please make sure that even if even if nobody else is bidding on this guy, you still have to spend $1 on him. That is required. We would love to make it required through Yahoo, but unfortunately Yahoo doesn't allow you to create a minimum bid, but there is a minimum bid in this league. So please keep that in mind. And we'll keep checking to make sure people are on top of it. All right, let's move on to some of the pickups. There weren't a whole lot this week. Is there anything that stands out to you on the waiver wire, John?
No, I mean, I didn't. Well, yes, there's one thing, the Jimmy Grandpa, as he's been called in a few things, in a few fantasy football podcasts that I've listened to. $15 bid, which he has been catching touchdowns and targeting the red zone quite a bit. So I think it's a great pickup. It's good to see him back in the mix here in fantasy land. I'm sure too many of our Packer fan league mates demise. Disappointment. Yeah. They hate to see Jimmy Graham back in the mix, but especially playing well for the Bears. But Justin Jefferson, big pickup. I think that's he had a breakout game there. Mm-hmm. And other than that, I don't think there's too much movement there.
I picked up Dalton Schultz for $7, which I did not need to spend because none of you guys bid on him. I'm not sure why I thought anybody was going to. And other than that, no other big names.
I do like the Mo Alley Cox pickup. I think he's due for a breakout there. Big guy.
Okay.
big guy.
That happened late in the week last week. I forgot about that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So if we go back a little bit, but other than that, I don't think there's much there.
Cool.
Yeah, you see Charlie's desperation play to take the win down there with getting Willie Snead, but that didn't process till Tuesday morning. So he was not able to put that into his matchup last
Yes.
week, but ended up costing him the win there. And so, well, with Willie Snead, it wouldn't have mattered, but
Charlie was going to lose no matter what. And we will, so Charlie did not end up starting a wide receiver last week because of this fiasco with Devontae Adams and not being able to pick somebody up that was actually playable. We will be assessing some sort of penalty, and that'll be laid out in the coming weeks. Okay, let's take a quick look at something we brought up last time. The trading block hasn't been updated much. The Barracudas are using it. Kelly's using it. John and I have started using it. Just something to keep in mind if you are looking to make some moves. Always a good place to put them up.
Yeah, and it's not even just people that you are trying to trade away. It's positions that you would like, or some positions you're targeting that would give people some help in looking at possible trades. And so
for sure, we'll I'm sure revisit this as we approach the trade deadline later this year. Okay, you ready to move on?
I'm ready for this next week.
Okay, final countdown here, final section. We're going to do the weekly preview. The weekly preview top line game. You guys may have noticed the Decatur Staleys are playing the Rose City Destroyers in a battle of the roses. We won't bore you too much with this, but we are excited about it. For me, I'm just excited because it's pretty much a guaranteed win. John, how are you feeling about it?
Not great, Bob. Not great.
Okay.
You know what? With George Kittle coming back, and I'm putting Mike Davis in the lineup this week, and Joe Mixon's due for a big game at some point, and so is AJ Green or Brandon Cook. So hopefully, I hit on a few guys, and as Bill says, crack 100, and so if I can do that, maybe I can get a win, and nothing feels better than beating your older brother for the first win of the season. So we'll see.
How would you know?
Playing you in basketball all those years, I know
you never
things
beat
about
me.
winning.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
but I think it'll be a good matchup, and hopefully.
Yeah, I have to find a quarterback.
Competitive.
I'm in a bit of a quarterback bind with Tannehill and Garoppolo. Garoppolo looks like he will not play this week. He's still not practicing. And
I'm potentially too
affected by you could have some trouble with that
I've
as well
Ben
with Big Ben
too. So
and actually, I realize now you don't have a backup, so we might be bidding on the same quarterback later tonight. Who knows?
Yes.
Other big name matchups this week, not big name, but big top line matchups this week to preview. We've got Bill and Brendan going at it. The Hollow Earthers versus Brendan El Bombolero. This is not, it's not a must-win game for Fitz, but it's a game I know he'd like to have. And for Bill, it's easy to see the train is just going to keep on trucking here, keep on rolling. But I like what Fitz has done picking up Jeff Wilson. I think he could be useful this week. We'll see. Other than Kareem Hunt has got a pretty steady gig, I guess, is the best way to describe it if he plays this week. Although he didn't practice today, so that's not a great sign. And let's see who Fitz has on his bench, actually. Well, Not a lot of great options there either. So.
Yeah, that's a rough. But Kenny Galladay coming in, his first game back, right? It's hopefully has a big one. It's someone that I've been targeting in some of my other leagues.
Yeah,
try and
you
get
gotta
Galladay
imagine, though,
there.
that New Orleans defense is looking for a bounce back after last week, and those corners that are pretty talented are going to be looking to make
first
some
week
troubles.
back is always is always tough for someone coming off I think it's a hamstring. Is that right? Or some sort of lower leg. And Smith-Schuster has had a similarly just kind of slow start, so hopefully he can get going. And Noah Fant too, I think, headed down last week. So, and the whole rotating, quarterback carousel there in Denver is going to be tough for anyone to get going, which kind of has hurt every facet of that offense outside of Melvin Gordon. So
yeah, Denver is a mess. Even Melvin Gordon not playing particularly well. Last matchup here that we were going to look at, this Alpha Peters versus Charlie's team. Again, Charlie somehow has 2 wins here, really on the backs of the Rodgers and Aaron Jones and his Packer buddies that he's got on this team. But it's hard for me to imagine the Alpha Peters losing this one.
I agree with that. I think Aaron Rodgers will show up and he'll have a great game, but it's certainly going to be a shootout. And I don't know how much Aaron Jones will be involved. And Eckler's going up to Tampa Bay, which will be a tough matchup. And I have no confidence in Ertz. And as you see, Charlie still has Tariq Cohen in his lineup, who's out for the season. And looking at his bench, there is not much there in the way of a fill-in spot there. So if Devontae Adams plays, he's looking at playing, was it Willie Snead at this point?
Yep.
Which is not good. He's got 3 quarterbacks on his roster and 2 kickers. So he certainly could be making some moves there and 2 defenses. So he could drop a few guys. And
Charlie, your team's a mess. You got to get it together, man. Things are
yes.
You got some great players here, but you've really got some
holes
in your bench.
Yes.
Okay.
It's major work to do, but Alpha Peter, we've talked about his team enough. Let's
we don't need to
dwell on that too much. Yeah, he's good. We get it.
Yep,
it's cool.
Sure. Indeed.
That's it, right? That's the last matchup we were going to look at. The only other thing I've got is, going back to what you had said in the beginning, thanks for all the feedback. It's been awesome and hilarious to see some of the recommendations or some of the, bits, feedback. One team that we not on purpose by any means, but just sort of worked out this week that we did not heed Ken's advice whatsoever, and we did not mention him once. On this,
fucking ruined that. You just ruined it.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw it out there. But
okay.
Yeah, we did not do that. But some other great suggestions that we've gotten came from. Well, of course, like everything else in this league, one of the Peters, and so he's thrown in some great suggestions, including some Charlie Rose chalk talk, having Father Rose come on the segment and break down a team or a weekly matchup, which we might get a few. We really need to slow things down and some guest shots, and then I think the best one is the can I speak to your manager? And Karen Rose, come on.
We may have to do that as well.
Yeah, that's pretty good. But everyone else, please send them in if you got any recurring or one-off segments that you'd like to see us discuss
or yourselves
on the
chat
segment,
about.
yeah, that would be awesome. And so that's
One
all I got.
One quick last update before we head out. The annual Peter Kramer Survival Tournament. Did we have a loser last week?
I would say we had quite the loser last week.
And who was the loser last week?
That would be myself.
You, John Rose. Okay,
yes.
you heard it here first. John Rose, loser.
They didn't even send a lifeboat to me. They
just literally made you
swim.
Yep.
Oh, sure, I'm still swimming at this point.
Indeed.
But, yes, I was the big loser of the week.
You are out at this point.
Yep.
Kelly has been kicked off the island, and Alec has been kicked off the island. Everybody else still in play. So congratulations to everybody, but those three, you guys are drowning.
Yep, it's funny, you go in 3, you would think that you would be off the island. So that's exactly what happened. So
yeah,
bummer.
both 0-3 teams out. Okay, all right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. We will speak to you again next week, and look for some correspondence later in the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Goodbye.
All right. Have a good night.
Go Sox.
Gross.